up. A topic that's come up so far a couple of times this morning is about extending your services footprints beyond your geographical footprint. And that brings us nicely to what Johannes, who is VP of Commercial Roaming Services at Deutsche Telekom, is going to talk about, which is blockchain out of the blocks? Thank you, Johannes.
Hello, everybody. And Annie, thanks a lot for the nice introduction. As said, my name is Johannes Opitz, and I'm the Vice President of Commercial Roaming at Deutsche Telekom Group. So my main job and the one of my team is to negotiate roaming discount rates with all operators across the world, and also to ensure that the M2M business in certain cases get local access in countries around the world. So to kick off on the next page, it is what I brought with me is a little bit of a press clipping that already is some years old, to give you an impression on what we are talking about. I think blockchain, it started with a hype. Some may even say that it has been overhyped and overrated. And now it has come a little bit more quiet. A lot of operators started to look into blockchain as well as other industries. And why did we do so? I think one of the main purposes was to cater for the more and more complex development in the telco industry. And the main use case really is to reduce manual work, to make it even more secure, and to also find an answer for the increased complexity. I'll come to that at a later point in time. The use cases there are various ones. They are not only in roaming, but also you can start to think of identity management, of IoT, of fraud management. So all sorts of work where a lot of manual work is required. On the next page, you will find an overview of some of the use cases and what we do at the wholesale arm of Deutsche Telekom, Telecom Global Carrier. So on the left-hand side, the current situation, as I already said, the world is becoming more and more complex. The work we are doing is still fairly manual. We all know that telco companies are under quite some cost pressure, and the pressure is going to increase. And let's be honest, in the wholesale business, innovations have also been limited. We are in a phase where a variety of new services, be it on local connectivity level or even on roaming, are going to be launched. Now we have NB-IoT, LTE-M, VoLTE, 5G. 5G slicing is coming up. We will definitely have different rates per slice. Quality of service is coming into play. So the world around us is getting more and more complex. We have more and more differentiated services we are going and have to build on a wholesale level. And hence we were looking into blockchain because there is a need to simplify and digitize our business in order to even accelerate the processes. So we had a deeper look into blockchain, because the typical lifetime of a wholesale contract is that you negotiate with a partner, you sign an agreement, you do the forecasting, build up of accruals, the settlement. Of course, you will have disputes with a partner in some cases. Then you have to ensure the payment. So it is a whole process, and the more complex and the more services you have to cover, of course, the higher the workload is going to be. So we were launching a first proof of concept and minimal viable products with voice, data, and demand and roaming. They look very promising. We reached out to other early adopters, as Deutsche Telekom is. So the Vodafone Group, Telefonica, Orange, Turkcell, Korea Telecom, and other voice carriers. But, and this is what we have to state at this point in time, the technology is still very young. It is evolving. We see a lot of blockchain companies around the world. There is no silver bullet, and we still have to invest a lot into research and development. But what is already clear is that we have to move ahead as an industry in order to agree on certain standards. So what we have done in Deutsche Telekom so far, and this is what you can see on the right-hand side, we have put quite a lot of R&D in an own product, which is going to be an open source product. We are going to develop this product further jointly with the GSMA and other mobile operators. The second building block we are currently active part in is, we call it Learn with Others. So we have launched a proof of concept and a minimal viable product with 2 other major MNOs. And last but not least, as I said earlier, we need to move ahead as an industry. We are also very active when it comes to, let's say, standardization with regards to what has to be taken care of via the GSMA, the GLF, or the C-band. Now, these are the 3 activities we are currently active in. On the next page, you see, well, we called it 3 things to remember when we talk about blockchain. The first thing is blockchain technology is different from Bitcoin. Now, yes, there are some similarities, but at the end of the day, it is one, you can say, is a public, which is Bitcoin, and the other one, blockchain, is private. Yeah, so on the right-hand side, number 2, also another major difference, what you have to remember is the traditional business is where you have a central entity, a central ledger. The clients are somehow, I would say, reluctant to share information. And also, well, we called it untrusted relationships. So you need, at the end of the day, you need some sort of a middleman. In the roaming business, this can be a hub, a data clearinghouse, a financial clearinghouse, but you need to have a trusted middleman, or a middleman that is accepted by both parties. When we now move into blockchain, this is a private blockchain. It is complete decentral. It is a peer-to-peer relation. Every peer keeps a copy of all the data in-house. The data is encrypted prior to sharing, and you move on to a trusted relationship. You need, or you can only participate by invitation, but of course you also need to have a governing body for the keys, right? It is comparable to a large block of flat, and you have the landlord who is passing over to you the key. Once you have the key, you can enter the block whenever you want, but you need somebody who centrally is giving you the key, okay? On the next page, this is, of course, it's not exhaustive, but these are some, well, industries where, or we call it 6 clusters, where blockchain use cases are now evolving. I think they all have in common that they are fairly standardized, that they require still a lot of manual work, and this work also has to be performed in a diligent manner. So it spreads from enabling services down to security, identity management. You even have horizontal services like IoT, where also a blockchain, or where we are currently also looking into what we can do with blockchain, and financial services and industry services. Really, in every industry, you can find a use case for blockchain. I now want to focus a little bit more on the top right-hand service, and here in particular on roaming. And when we move on to the next page, the roaming business is, as we all know, is moving really into a commodity. It is highly standardized. It is accepted. It's working for decades now. A lot of different clearing houses have evolved. They are specialized on financial clearing, re-rating, RUP files. So the call data record offline exchange. So I don't want to name all of them, but it is a pretty mature industry. When I entered into the roaming business, I would say 5 years back, and when we started to negotiate with our roaming partners preferred rates, we only had 3 rates because we had 3 services only. We were negotiating rates for voice, data, and SMS. And just for the sake of an example, imagine you have a group of 10 operators on one end and 10 operators on the other end. That brings you down to 100 relations. In roaming, you have roamers abroad and roamers in your own network. So you have 2 directions, which brings you to 200 relations. And now you negotiate rates for voice, SMS, and data. So times 3, that brings you up to 600 relations. Now, throughout the past 5 years, the complexity has increased because we are now having 3 different rates for voice. So a voice minute that goes international, that remains local, that goes back home. For data, we will have a variety of different data prices coming up. The normal data when you access the open internet, but also different rates for NB-IoT, for LTM, VoLTE, WiLTE, different quality of services. So all of a sudden what you see is the services are multiplying, and hence the complexity is increasing. The example I made before, when we had only 600 relations with all new services, all of a sudden we are confronted with 1,600 different prices in such relation. That means instead of 600, you have 1,000 more possibilities to put in your billing system a wrong price. That would lead to a creation of a RUP file, which would then ultimately also would require more manual work to sort out with your roaming partner and the data clearinghouse the right rates. So as it becomes highly complex, we were looking into what can we actually achieve with the blockchain in roaming. And this is what is depicted on the next page, actually, is we have 3 building blocks. We have the contract, we have the settlement, and we have the payments. So what we do in contract, we want to move to smart contracts that are fully digital. We want to have with the roaming partner one source of truth, and we want to have no pricing disputes. You can start to think of it will be in a smart contract, and it can be even a pretty easy Excel sheet that both partners are then uploading into their billing system. And then via the settlement, it will be automatically be done via blockchain in near real time. And that actually will lead to less disputes. And at the end of the day, on the long run, we would even not need any data clearinghouse anymore over time. But you should really be aware of the fact that as long as there is still one roaming partner of yours, which is working with the data clearinghouse, you also have to have a relation with the data clearinghouse. Yeah, so as long as not everybody is on blockchain, you still need to have a data clearinghouse. And then last but not least, on the right-hand side, we also envision that at the end of the day, even the payments are on a selectively basis done via blockchain. Yeah, so this is, I would say, the development cycles of blockchain. On the next page, how is actually now the roaming evolution over time? And this is really illustrative. So roaming today, I think we don't have to deep into that one for long. We all know how it works. We have contracts, we have separate payments, and we all know, as I said earlier, it is becoming more and more complex. In the middle block, this is what we are currently covering with the MVP, with a blockchain company and a variety set of operators. We are currently looking into how to automate the settlement. You remember from the page before, the middle block, yeah, because we focused on an intermediate step simply to reduce complexity. We didn't want to cover the whole chain from smart contract settlement and payments. So we deliberately were only choosing the middle block. So what can we do for reducing the automated settlement via blockchain? So we have created standardized settlement sheets. We have created automated dispute resolutions, credit and debit notes. We still do the payments offline in an existing currency. And for simplicity reasons, we still use data clearing houses, also in order to have a direct check whether blockchain is coming up with the same results. The long-term vision, and this is what you can find on the right-hand side, is that we really plan to come up with a pure blockchain covering all the different blocks. So it starts from the discount agreements down to invoicing and even the identity. Everything is going to be performed in real time. We won't have any TAP implementations anymore, no settlement, and we would really have on-the-fly settlement, and it will substantially reduce the manual workload, right? On the next page, one more learning, which you may find interesting. When we look at the blockchain from, I would say, 2 years experience by now, blockchain technology is just only 20% of the work. 80% is actually work in different areas. Yes, in a first step, costs will increase, but this will, on the long run, be offset with a substantial reduction in complexity. The processes will be faster as well. And at the end of the day, you will have a significant cash flow improvement. But as I said earlier, costs will increase because you have a massive integration in existing systems. But once you have done it, you can also use it for other services that are running on the same infrastructure. Now, just for instance, identification, and in roaming, for instance, it will also have an impact on reduction of fraud. So there are various layers. So we are planning with the implementation and the first automized blockchain settlement process starting of 2022. And this is also due to the fact that we have annual cycles. So in 2022, we will start with that. On the last and final page, the more detailed view on the learnings we have seen from our blockchain initiative is the first and very good message is it works. It is really working, but we have to move as an industry. We have to define standards, because if everybody is designing its own standard, it will not work. So in order to have and to exploit really the full integration or the full potential of blockchain, you have to integrate it in your existing IT systems. And the more you are the integration, the more IT systems you are going to integrate it in, the more use cases you will at the end be able to cover. It has, however, also some side effects. You have to think very carefully about the privacy and the confidentiality, because as with blockchain, you need also to trace all the activities you will at a certain point in time realize that you also have to share confidential documents, and here you have to find a way to maintain the needed confidentiality, and this has to be managed via the architecture. You also have to come up with a new governance structure, because it is a private blockchain and not a public one. So you need to have an entity that allow members to participate and also ensures that everyone is sticking to the rules. So this is also very important. And hence, we have, from a roaming perspective, also reached out to the GSMA, as we consider the GSMA to be the main body who is going to standardize these things and is helping our industry to create and set up these rules. Yeah. And at the end of the day, as pointed out earlier, it is creating significant efficiencies. It helps you to reduce fraud, but it doesn't come for free. And you also have to have in the back of your head, as long as there is a single roaming partner out there who is relying on a data clearinghouse, you have to be connected to that data clearinghouse as well. And that's the end of my presentation. Thanks a lot for listening. And I think, Annie, there was one or the other question coming in.
Yes, there are some questions. Thank you. That was very interesting, Johannes. And so one question is, are you worried about the energy requirements for running blockchain? And if you're not worried, why not?
That's a good question. I cannot answer that one. Yeah, so far we have not experienced a massive increase in energy. Yeah, but it is somehow a little bit different though to Bitcoin mining. Yeah, so currently we still see the advantage of a reduction in workload that is not offset by the increase in energy.
Okay, and we have another question asking about how you're going to deal, or how blockchain is going to deal with the huge volume of data, and also the data that has to be stored for future use. And a second part of that question is about the the amount of data that's being provided by huge concerns like Apple and Samsung and Microsoft, and managing. So it's about managing really big volumes of data from a lot of different sources.
Yeah, let me answer the question in a different way. Yeah, so currently the storage of data and the processing of data is done via the clearinghouse, right? As we take over step by step with the carrier relations, when we are going on blockchain, we are taking it out from the clearinghouse, and let's say we are moving it more on a direct level. So at the end of the day, yes, we would increase the storage on our end, but we would pay less to the clearinghouses. So and as we currently also have this data stored in-house, yes, we will need a little bit more storage for that additional data, but it is not costing that much of additional money. And don't forget, it comes with a benefit. So you can reduce fraud, which is a huge profitability driver, because you simply reduce the possibilities to fraudsters to ingest something into your value chain, and this is definitely offsetting any future invest.
Okay, so that's partly answered another question, which, as blockchain reduces fraud, where do you think the remaining areas for fraud will be outside blockchain?
The remaining areas of fraud. So I think a very, very big risk is, and I wouldn't actually call it fraud. So once we have, let's say, put roaming on a blockchain, yes, we will have less fraud in roaming. Once we will have catered for other services, I think the new way of fraud is coming in a different area, which is the IoT, where fraudsters will try to, let's call it, hijack devices and then simply ask for money. I mean, just assume for a second that we will have a self-driving car and somebody is taking over that kind of services and asking money either from the operator or from the car manufacturers to give this device again back. I think this is the new fraud that is coming up, and here again, blockchain is a very efficient way to make it really end-to-end secure.
Okay, we've got one more question. They keep coming. This has clearly sparked a lot of people's thinking. So I'm going to kind of roll two questions into one. And are you expecting to use cryptocurrencies for settlements? And do you think you'll bring the banks into blockchain?
Well, banks are, as we speak, looking into blockchain. Yeah, for different sorts of their financial products. I think there are as advanced, or even might be even more advanced than we are, because it's even more standardized, and so it already is there. Cryptocurrency, I would say, on the long run, currently we are using in roaming already special drawing rights, which is an artificial currency already, which is composed of different nationwide currencies. So I would say when there is a cryptocurrency that is regulated and standardized the same way as an SDR, for instance, why not?
Okay.
Yeah, but currently I don't see it for the multiple reasons why Bitcoin is still so volatile.
Yes. Johannes, thank you so much. Great presentation. We really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Bye-bye.